Working with a true expert is an experience unlike any other, knowing they have the knowledge, experience, adaptability, and judgment to serve you and those you love is something special. As a trusted guide through the most important times in my clients' lives, I have realized that these experts are all around us and I want to know more. I'm Brandon Ayers, and I've searched near and far for the people I consider to be experts in their field, interest, or hobby. As it turns out, they're just like us. I've invited one of them here today to join me as we take a deep dive into what places them among the true, everyday experts. Welcome to Everyday Experts with Brandon Ayers. I am Brandon Ayers. I'm really excited that you're here and listening or watching us. I have a great guest today. Nicole will introduce in a second, but I just wanted to really thank you for being here. I'm an attorney, but I'm not your attorney. I have my law firm, Legacy and Life Law Firm, but I'm really happy to get going with today's episode with Nicole Bolden, a therapist, family support specialist. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to have a good conversation. I know we've met, and Raghu, who introduced us, we've just he always introduces people you just kind of get along with, right?
Right.
So I'm excited that we're having another conversation here on tape this time.
Yes.
To share with where we kind of see the world and some valuable things for people. But I always like to start these podcasts just a little less heavy or technical than that. Is just called Got a Second. So I just knock on your door and say, hey, you got a second? And part of what we shared, on the health and wellness thing, kind of new trends. What we've shared with each other. I've gone through different types of fads and everything, and I even saw a TikTok the other day on all these new, the shots that they have for weight loss and all that kind of stuff. But I've done the high intensity workout training, the intermittent fasting, all that kind of stuff. And what's kind of one of your kind of trends that you've seen lately that's kind of piqued your interest?
Oh, right now I am falling in love with the acupressure mats.
Okay.
So it's like the bed of nails.
Yeah.
And it seems really crazy at first, and it's like you're torturing yourself a little bit, but only for a hot second. Yeah. You lay on it, and it really relieves your low back pain, and it's a stress reliever. Okay. I'm loving it. And float therapy.
Okay.
I love float because it helps. We're all overstimulated these days.
Yeah.
And so, to be in an area where you can just close all of that, just be in a dark pot.
Completely, yep. I've done that.
It's completely dark, and I'm just floating in, body temperature water.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it.
Me too.
It's the best nap in the world. I wake up, whoa, I've been sleeping a week. But it was only been an hour, so I love that. That's my...
No, I really love the float, too. My wife and I have done them. We've done both the single and the couples one.
Really?
They have a couples. Yeah, I don't care, because it's so salty, because you make you float, you have to have salt waters, So, if you splash or get in your eyes, then it's not great. She loves the couple one. I'm not... But anyway, because you're just... But the way I describe it is, the first time, you couldn't even tell if my eyes were open or not. That's how dark it was. Are my eyes open or are they not open? I can't tell. Yep. But the temperature of the waters, so you can't even tell where the water is or where it's not. You're just kind of sitting there and just completely devoid of any kind of thing. It's really nice.
A disclaimer to anyone trying it new: the first time you will be completely freaked out. You will hate it. Possibly your first time.
Or if you're claustrophobic or whatever else, I suppose. But I really liked it. It was relaxing.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
The first time I was like, am I really going to close this door on myself? Yeah. This seems like a setup for failure. What am I doing?
Yeah.
But
like the start of a scary movie.
Yes.
Telling the person, don't go in there.
Yes.
And then the acupuncture thing reminds me of, remember those sandals back in the day that just had they're all just, I think they're Adidas sandals. They're all just made of little spikes up.
Yes.
And I had those back, but that's kind of the same thing other than the bed of nails. That's the idea of just little. But is that kind of at the same spot? They have the salt room, the float room, and then the acupressure room? Is that?
No, I actually purchased it.
Oh, okay.
So I went all in.
Okay.
I did the lower price one to go
all in. Yeah.
And it's a mat you can put on your bed or the floor, and you lay on it. You're literally laying on a bed of nails.
Okay.
It's plastic, surgical things. Yeah. So it's not a bed of nails.
Okay.
But it's supposed to simulate that.
Okay.
And it's wonderful.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's just the first 2-ish minutes you're like, breathe.
Yeah, get through it.
This is going to feel good afterwards. And then you kind of just melt away. Okay. I just do it for 20 minutes a day, and I feel really relaxed afterwards.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to try that. All right, let's get into it. So I know part of what we talked about, especially from your background on the mental health and therapy side of things, and then from my perspective, I don't know if you want to call it the aftermath on the estate planning side or the during, but just dealing with all the, I always say it's I don't have a magic wand to fix that stuff. You have a little bit of more of a wand to approach fixing that stuff. But the interpersonal relationships, the areas in life where stressors are put, and one of the things we touched on that we have see a profound impact on is kind of the postpartum issues. With all the depression and all the other things that can come with the mental health affecting everyone. Of course the mother, of course, but it's a family illness. The way I see it, not from a diagnostic standpoint, but from an impact standpoint for sure. So I know it's a huge deal to be able to even when you're not the person dealing with the depression, let's just say, to be able to spot it and do certain things that can help. Because from my perspective and with my own personal life and with friends, they're never going to reach out and say, hey, I need this help. Here it is. And to be too reaching out is going to be its own negative thing. Yeah. So how do you strike this balance to be like, hey, here's a little thing I need to do that's going to actually help, but not be too overbearing? Like, what kind of tools are out there that people can use, or just things to spot to help people when they're going through this stuff?
Yeah, I just want to throw out a few stats just to let everyone know that even if they themselves don't feel like they went through postpartum depression or anxiety, you probably know someone who has. And so this conversation is relevant for everyone. So the very conservative stats, and remember, if you got a stat, that means these are people who are willing to participate in a survey.
Yep.
So these are very conservative. 1 in 5 women experience postpartum depression. There's not even good stats for anxiety. So I'm willing to say 1 in 3 experience anxiety. And then it's 1 in 10 men. So even how many more men? How many men actually took the survey?
Self-select,
So 1 in 10 men experience postpartum depression. 1 in 10.
Wow.
So you probably know, if you have any parents in your life, you probably know at least one dad, at least one mom who has experienced this. And then the other staggering stat, there's tons of studies on this, but I like the Gottman Institute, and they have the stat that says 67% of couples experience some conflict or not negative emotions regarding their relationship in the first 3 years of having a kid. So not the first year, the first 3 years of having a kid. 67%.
Okay.
67%. This is pre-pandemic, so I don't even know what the number is now.
Yeah.
So I mean, people are struggling out here when they become a parent. So it's just like, if you have parents in your life, the best way to do it is to do some planning before the baby gets here, before all the hormones are crazy. Like, let's set up the support train. Let's set up the meal trains, the visits before the baby gets here, because people have a little more sanity at hand. They can think about it like, oh, I'm going to need help with the laundry. If you can come in once a week to do that. I'm not going to feel like cooking. Can we set up the meal train? Like, do as much planning beforehand. Like, baby showers are great. Doing the nursery is great. That baby may not even be in the nursery in the first few days. So, like, yes, let's get the room together, but let's focus on planning how we're going to take care of this family, how we're going to wrap around this family in the postpartum period. Like, yes, you want to give them time to adjust, but just say, hey, we'll drop off food for you. Or I'll come in once a week to do laundry for you. Or I'll just come in once a week to sit with you, Mom, because you're my friend, you're my sister, you're my cousin. I love the baby too, but I knew you first. So I want to make sure you're okay. So let's put it on the calendar. I'll come in once a week or whatever they need. Put that on the calendar first, because if you do it afterwards, there's a whole bunch of emotions in the play. There's a lot of hormones at play, and the mom or the dad may feel like, we can handle this. I don't need your help. But if you do it beforehand, that defensiveness is not there.
Okay. No, that makes sense. That's a really good idea. And you bring up the good point about the being there for the person, because that's something that gets lost out. Even the identity side of things can be a tremendous thing. Your identity changes. You're a mother and father, but it can also be a burden too, of you losing your own self-identity. And I'm sure just the advanced planning side of things, in giving yourself permission to say, hey, September 1, we're putting a dinner on the, us going out on the books, so many months after birth. We're going to do it. And it's already there, so you don't feel guilty about leaving the kid behind, and you already have whoever's coming over to watch it, so you don't feel that guilt because you've already planned it ahead. Right. And that's what I always say on my end of things too. It's that, the less reactive you have to be, it's better, because the emotions when you're dealing with tough things, yes. They're understandable, and they're not something you want to avoid even necessarily. It's just they make rational decision making so much worse, and people, in my experience, hide when or they get defensive, or they get proud, or they get whatever else it is, and they're gonna refuse, or they're not gonna put themselves out there for needing help. Interesting on the men's side of things. I can understand the women on the, because all the chemicals that are going on, yes. from a biological standpoint. I wonder, and I suppose it is a chemical and hormonal thing, but I wonder if it's just an innate trigger, from when you experience the birth. I wonder what's behind that, or if it's just an environmental thing. You got all this stress and dealing with the change and all that kind of stuff is just natural indicators of depression and all that too.
Yeah, there's a few different theories along with it. Some of it is a trigger of like, oh, I have to protect my family now. The insecurities come up, like, is this job good enough? Yep. Am I going to be a good enough dad? Depending on their relationship with their family, that's going to come back. So even if you feel separated from your family of origin, or you have the greatest family of origin, that's going to come into play those first few months of having a kid. Because that's your frame of reference of how to be a parent. But then there are some biological theories out there too. So like if the partner was in the birthing room, some hormones jump onto you. Because I'm also a doula, and I know I was a doula with my second child, probably later than I should have. And I know just being in the birthing room, I started to feel contractions because hormones were coming off the mom as she was giving birth. Wow. So the people in that room can catch some of those hormones. So if the partner's in the room, they're going to have some hormonal changes too that can impact.
That's true. I think of hormones, and especially from a birthing mom getting postpartum depression, you think of it like a lymphatic thing, not like a airborne pheromone type of thing or whatever it is. I don't know what the right terms are, but that's true. Those things still exist, right? They're still there. Yeah, that's really interesting. And just one other thing on the stats, on the anxiety thing, that's got to be a 1-on-1. That's not a 3-on-1. That's a 1-out-of-1 feel anxiety, right?
Right.
I mean, everybody's got to feel anxiety.
And I feel like maybe that's why they don't do the studies on it, because everyone has like this level of anxiety, especially
anxiety is a big
age.
term, but everybody, if you're skipping and jumping and whistling your whole way through, that's something. Anyway, but that's really interesting. That's really interesting. Because you talk about that birthing room, it is such an experience, and you carry so much with you. You mentioned it doesn't really matter if your family background. I've the 2 kids, and when my son was born, the oldest, at that point my dad had passed away. So one of the things I talk with my clients, it's not like an ongoing grief,
right.
but that wonderful day also has a tinge of that to it, right? Yes. So that has it. And then when my daughter was born, both my parents had passed away, so it's the same thing. Yep. And then all those moments come up, and I'm sure it comes from, that was one negative moment of otherwise good parents, and I'm sure it happens in the opposite too, otherwise pleasant moments with otherwise negative experience with parents, and all sorts of mixtures in between that people are experiencing and trying to process, while also trying to support a new life. It's a whole heck of a lot to handle.
Right, because it doesn't even, sometimes people think of trauma, but I think about, my mom was really, we had a family business, but for the most part, she was a stay-at-home mom. And so that's considered a positive thing, but it created so much anxiety in me. I'm a bit of a workaholic, so I'm like, am I not supposed to be a stay-at-home mom? How am I going to do all the things that my mom did and work and do all the things? So that alone just created anxiety, because my frame of reference was of wonderful mom, but a helicopter mom who stayed at home for the most part. Right. And how am I supposed to live up to that? Right. So even though that was a great experience, it still created so much anxiety, and no one talks about that.
Yeah, and then I also experienced like on the relationship between the parents, when they're living together. It's like, my mom and your mom were 2 different people, and if I'm putting my expectations on you, well, my mom worked, so I expect you to be back out there 3 days afterwards, right?
Exactly.
But that'll be a thing in our relationship, wouldn't it? So being able to communicate those things and that definitely ahead of time would be a big deal, because one of the things I kind of get back to is when I talk with my clients about any kind of big moment is it puts your relationships like in that hydraulic press, and cracks only get bigger when you have that pressure on you. So the only real alternative is to relieve as much pressure as possible. Right. So you do that with clear communication, with some planning, and with some understanding that you're going to have to adjust, some willingness to be a little bit vulnerable there and say, hey, we didn't get this right. This diaper changing stations is not in the right location. Doesn't work. We're going to move it, or whatever it is. The sun, our nursery, it's in the wrong. The sun comes up, it's right in her eyes too early in the morning, wakes her up. Let's change it or get better curtains. All those little things, but you have to be willing to adjust as you go along. So, obviously these interpersonal relationships too get impacted by these kind of situations. Yeah, and I'm sure you obviously have a lot of experience with that. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, because for the most part, you think about the communication that you have prior to having kids or when you're dating, courting, whatever you want to call it. You're having conversations, you're communicating with each other, but you're on a date, you're not really talking about like, so your family of origin, how were you raised?
Yeah.
What were your parents' values on children? Or even if you do have that conversation, it's still going to be very surface level.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like, yeah, this is what's going to happen with our kids.
Yeah.
It's like hypothetical.
Yeah.
The hypothetical changes when that baby is actually there. And depending on if it's a girl or a boy. The hypothetical is just like, maybe it's a boy, but then you have a girl. That conversation just went out the door because you didn't talk about a girl. You talked about a boy. Or finances. You could have saved for 10 years. Babies are still expensive.
They sure are.
And inflation goes up a lot. And so it's like finances are always a conversation. Or why are we paying $700 for daycare? That just seems outrageous.
Yeah.
They're like, maybe we shouldn't do that. Or going back to work. Like, you can have these conversations before the baby gets here or even before you get pregnant. Yeah. But if you're not having it while you're pregnant, it doesn't mean much because everything changes once it's more of a concrete idea. So like the communications they're having, I love saying having a family mission statement is important because it's going to give you a grounding source, like something that's going to bring you back no matter what. Like we value X, Y, and Z for our family. This is how we support each other. This is how our family unit wants to show up in the world. And that's going to be your anchor.
Okay.
But how often do you make a family mission statement before you have kids?
Yeah. I'm 0 for 2. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the type of communication that really needs to be happening when you're having a kid. The wills, legacy.
Yeah.
How often are you talking about wills?
Yeah.
And before you have kids,
right.
or just different things.
Even though it's kind of like when you're describing that, the thing came to mind of like sometimes in like a war movie. You have the character who's all like puffing his chest out before they get to war, and then when they're in the bunker, scared, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like you can say, yeah, we're gonna do this, that, and the other. We're gonna have them speaking 6 languages and reading by this, and then when you're in it, you're just like, can we just get a wipe box that has wipes in it, please? Like, can we just get that? Like that's when it gets real. Like let's these conversations we've had of nice and aspirational. Yeah. When you're actually in the thick of it, like let's figure out this day-to-day stuff and figure these things out.
Or even mental health. No one goes into like being pregnant and delivery saying, hey, I may have a psychosis episode. Yep. I may have severe depression. I may have crippling anxiety. No one thinks about that. Right. Because it's, the movie's like happily ever after. The family just like, yay, we have a baby.
Yeah.
No one thinks about the mom or the dad sitting in a corner shaking with the baby.
Yep.
What do you do then?
Yep.
You don't think about that. And so it's just like having a communication. If one of us, how do we support each other when the other one can't say, I'm struggling?
Yeah.
Or if I do say I'm struggling, how do I support you?
Yeah. And speaking of that, on the support level, I know you're starting a new social group to kind of fill that gap a bit. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yes, because people talk about traditional roles and like stay-at-home moms and things like that. But even back in 50s, 60s, 70s, parenthood didn't look like it looks today. A lot of parents are working in silos. We're very isolated. And then thanks to the pandemic, we're extremely isolated because we want to stay healthy. And so now how do we build community? Because community is where people are going to notice the changes. They're going to say, I should visit a little more often.
Yeah.
Or let's think of bipolar psychosis. They would be able to pick up like, that's not our normal type of conversation.
Right.
They can catch it before it goes extreme because they notice the changes.
Right.
You can't notice that change if you're not in community. Or just even knowing, like, is it normal that my baby has baby acne? Or that my baby is the hair is shedding? Like, babies have balding spots.
Yeah.
And it was like, is it normal that my baby is balding? They shed. They have baby acne. Yeah. They drool. They, different things. Sometimes they stink. And it's like, is this normal? Yeah. And if you're in community, you can say, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's normal.
Yeah.
And so I'm creating the social club called the Mental Health Days Social Club.
Okay.
Because a lot of times we have our friend groups, and that is wonderful. But depending on the origin of this friend group, they may not be the supportive friends in this season.
Yeah.
You may be the first in your friend group to have kids. You may be the first to be married. Or in our case, we had kids later. So we're having newborns and the rest of our friends have high schoolers, you know? And so it's just like, even though they understand, there's still a gap in their experience.
Yep.
And so you may need a different type of community for the season that you're in. Yeah. And so that's what I'm hoping to create is just this safe community that really focus on wellness, and you can find your group depending on the season that you're in.
Okay.
So I have a text number, so I'll send like encouraging messages at least once a week, maybe more, but I'm not gonna blow up people's phones, and that's too much of a commitment. So at least once a week, get an encouraging message, have some virtual gatherings, but also the in-person gatherings. Like the first one I want to do in the first weekend in June, it would just be a cookout at like Bussy Woods.
Okay.
So it's like, get back to nature. Let's meet people. Let's grill and have fun. Yeah. Sit in the grass again and have fun with some people. Yeah. Because when you commune over food, that's a different experience. Yeah. And so just getting back to the basics of relationship and community that focus on wellness.
Yeah, no, and you're right to breeze out the seasonality of that too, because that's important. Because you think of, we can always, it's almost like an old trope now of like the parent that comes up and say, well, you shouldn't do that. Back when I did, or think of the crib. Well, we could put blankets back in there. It's like, all right, well, that was 30 years ago. Whatever, things have changed. But the same thing happens. You don't associate that often with friends. And so if you're looking for advice, if you're on either bookend of those, or frankly, even if y'all had babies the same day, and you're dealing with a psychosis thing, right? You're going to need that different group than even the most well-meaning of friends are just not going to be able to identify with you on that, even when they're caring and they want to be supportive.
And they may not be able to see you in that light either. Like if you're friends from high school, they may not be able to see you in the mom light. They may hold you to some of the things that you used to do.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
So, yeah.
Those are all really good points. So I can't build on that. That's a really good point. Because I always joke on the attorney side of things, like when I'm working with family, like I'm still the little kid, so that's how they see me. So I don't have any authority. Like strangers trust me more than my family does because the strangers see me as an attorney in their first impression where, I was the kid playing t-ball for some of my family. So, so that's why that point hit home for me. You brought that up. Okay, so I want to get quickly here as we're wrapping up, get to what I call the 4-pack, where I ask the same 4 questions here to everybody. So real quickly, what's your favorite book to recommend to a friend?
So in this current season, I have 2.
Okay.
One book is called The Best Yes by Lisa Turquoise.
Okay.
It's a Christian author, so there will be some spirituality, Christianity undertones in it. But I love it because it's the best yes. It really helps you think about how are you making decisions.
Okay.
What are your decision-making matrix of sorts.
Okay.
And the other book is kind of a social justice book, so it may not be for everyone. But it's called The Nap Ministry by Tricia Hershey.
Okay.
And it's really a big conversation about rest in our society.
Oh.
And it's not just about, you should take more naps, but it's it's a social justice book.
Okay.
And I loved it. It changed my whole mindset of just like this work, hustle, grind culture.
Yeah.
And just like, where did this all come from?
Yeah, I think the lights are starting to come on in that area.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I'm interested to see how that kind of melds with like the social justice thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's labor and I guess, they're all tied, right? So
I want to do a book study on it. So I may let you know soon, like just do a book club on it.
Okay.
Because it's a book that you really need to dissect with people and chew on a little bit.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, that sounds interesting. Okay. Second question. Yes. What's your go-to stand at the farmer's market?
Cheese.
Cheese. Okay.
Cheese.
Are we talking spicy with a bit of odor to it? What are we looking at?
All the cheeses. I don't discriminate. I love all the cheeses.
Okay. So for me, I love a good like blue cheese. It took me a while to get there, but I'll go for a good blue cheese. Yeah. I don't really do like the spicy stuff, cheeses in my cheese, but let's say I was gonna make a hamburger on my grill for you. Mm-hmm. I say, hey, what cheese do you want? Or you're just bringing the cheese. I tell you to bring the cheese. What cheese you throwing on it?
Either Havarti or blue cheese.
Okay, Havarti. I wouldn't have thought of Havarti. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So third question then. If you had to start over, you can't do any of this stuff we talked about. You just had to start something else. What would you do?
I was thinking about a doula, but I'm already a doula, so that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Maybe a teacher.
Okay.
I've worked in schools as a school social, but I was like, I do like teaching.
Specific age level?
The little kids.
Little kids, okay.
Not junior high, so K through 5.
K through 5, okay. All right, cool. Would you try just the general in the classroom all-day educator, or would you do like something specific in that, or?
See, I didn't think that far.
No, I'm just thinking. Like, are you doing the attendance and the on the chalkboard all day?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I like to be a homeroom. I like to be a face.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. And then the last one here. So you're at the pearly gates, and they say you got 5 minutes. You can go just sit and observe any time that you want. You get 5 minutes, no interaction. Just got 5 minutes. You can go sit and watch. What 5 minutes are you choosing?
Well, I'm always curious what my kids are talking about. So it would probably be a moment to see like them interacting.
Like them interacting off into the future, or like
in the future?
In the future, okay.
Because they're really cool humans, and I'm just curious of how they're gonna show up in their older.
Do you have like are they in their 70s? Are they are they 50s when
probably
you see them?
Like their 20s or 30s.
Okay,
ideally I'm there.
Yeah. But if you're not,
like
this hypothetical, okay,
right?
Yeah,
in their real spunky stage, where like, are they going to be protesters or what? What are they going to be doing?
So they're meeting at a bar after, like on a Thursday after work or something, and they're talking.
Yeah,
you just go sit and see what they're up to.
Yeah,
that's a good moment. Well, I want to say thank you, Nicole, so much for coming in. I know that we had a really good conversation. We could go a lot longer, but I really appreciate everything you do for people that need some good guidance, and you provide a really good foothold for them to improve their lives and get to where they need to go. So appreciate that, and thank you guys so much for listening. And next time on Everyday Experts, be kind to each other.